The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council was not built for small ideas. It was a circle of light, 10 kilometers wide, floating in the space between three suns. Its walls were made of living crystal, pulled from the heart of a dead star. Its floor showed the entire galaxy, turning slowly, star by star, like a living map. Around this floor sat the chairs of 1,000 species. Some chairs were tall, built for giants with skin like stone. Some were small, built for creatures who lived in swarms and spoke with light instead of words. Some were empty because their species no longer existed. War, disease, or time had erased them, but their chairs stayed as a kind of memory. Today, one more chair was empty, but this one was different. A soft golden light glowed above it. This light meant only one thing in the whole galaxy. A new species had been invited to join. The name carved into that chair in 1,000 different alien languages said one word: Earth. The council speaker was an old being named Vorntal. His race, the Threen, had guided the council for over 10,000 years. His skin was pale blue, and his eyes held the calm of someone who had seen empires rise and fall like waves on a beach. He stood at the center of the hall, his voice carried by ancient technology to every corner of known space. "Delegates of the Galactic Council," he said. "Today we complete a ceremony that began 2 Earth years ago. The species known as humanity was found, tested, judged worthy of a seat among us." He turned toward the empty chair. "Representative of Earth," he called. "Please come forward and accept your place." Silence. The great hall waited. 1,000 species, some old as stars, some young as flowers, all turned their many kinds of eyes toward the golden light above the empty chair. Nothing happened. Vorntal called again, louder this time. "Representative of Earth, step forward." Still nothing. A murmur spread through the hall like wind moving through tall grass. Some delegates leaned forward with curiosity. Others, especially the older and prouder species, leaned back with quiet anger. No one, in the 10,000-year history of the Council, had ever ignored the invitation. Vorntal called a third time, his ancient voice now carrying a note of concern. "Representative of Earth, this is your final call. Step forward, or the offer will be withdrawn." For a long moment there was only silence. Then the massive screen above the council floor flickered to life. It did not show a person. It showed simple words, white letters on a black screen, sent from a small blue planet at the edge of a quiet spiral arm. The message said, "We do not sit where we are told to kneel." 2 years earlier, a council scout ship had entered Earth's solar system. It came quietly, hiding behind the light of the sun, watching. The scouts were surprised by what they found. A species barely 100 years into space travel, yet already building weapons, cities, and machines with a strange, fast intelligence. Humanity built things quickly, faster than almost any species the Council had ever studied. The Council's first message to Earth had been simple, and, in their minds, generous. "You have been chosen. Join the Galactic Council. Accept guidance. Accept protection. Accept your place among the stars." But buried inside the friendly words was the truth of the offer. Earth would join as a Tier 3 species. This meant no seat with real power. It meant giving up all advanced weapons research to the Council for safekeeping. It meant paying tribute, a portion of Earth's resources every single year forever. It meant following rules made by species who had never once asked Earth what it wanted. In exchange, Earth would receive protection. Protection from threats the Council itself controlled. Many older species had accepted this same deal long ago. Some grew comfortable under Council rule, forgetting what it meant to stand on their own. Others resented it quietly, but stayed silent, afraid of what would happen if they refused. Humanity read the terms differently. In a plain white room in Geneva, the leaders of Earth's new United Assembly sat around a long table. There were no golden chairs here, no floating crystal walls. Just tired people, screens, and cups of coffee going cold. At the head of the table sat Captain Elena Cross. She was not a politician. She had spent 15 years as a fighter pilot, then 10 more leading Earth's first deep space defense fleet. Her hair was short and gray at the edges, her eyes sharp and calm, the eyes of someone who had made hard decisions before and lived with them. She had been chosen by vote of every nation on Earth to speak for humanity before the galaxy. "They think we'll say yes," said one of the ministers, a nervous man from the Trade Council. "Everyone says yes, it's the safest choice. If we refuse, they might destroy us." "They might," Elena said quietly. "But if we say yes, what do we become?" The room went quiet. "We become servants," she continued. "Not today, not next year, but slowly. They take our weapons first for safekeeping, then our resources for tribute. Then in 50 years and 100 years, our children forget that Earth was ever free. They grow up believing this is simply how things have always been." "And if we refuse," said an old general near the end of the table, "they may simply erase us. We have seen their fleets. We are children standing before giants." Elena looked around the table at each tired, frightened face. "Humanity has never survived because we were the strongest," she said. "We survived ice ages with no fur, no claws, no wings. We survived plagues that killed half our numbers. We survived wars that could have ended us. We are still here, not because we bowed, but because we never stopped standing back up." She stood. "We will not become anyone's servant. Not today. Not ever." The vote passed. Not unanimous. Fear still lived in many hearts, but strong enough. Humanity would refuse the council's terms. Back in the grand hall, the message on the screen sent a wave of shock through the chamber. Vorntal, the ancient speaker, stood very still. In 10,000 years, he had never witnessed this. Then, from the far side of the hall, a chair scraped loudly against the crystal floor. A massive figure rose. His skin was dark red, hard like armored stone, his eyes glowing orange like burning coals. This was Warlord Draketh Moore, leader of the Korath Dominion, a species famous across the galaxy for one thing only: war. The Korath had never lost a first contact war. Every young species that resisted them eventually knelt or ceased to exist. Draketh's voice boomed through the chamber, deep and mocking. "A soft, wet little species," he said, "born on a world with no danger, no real predators, barely out of their caves, dares to refuse the council?" Laughter, cruel and cold, rippled through parts of the hall. Not everyone laughed. Some delegates, especially smaller species who had once been forced into the council against their will, watched in silence, something like hope flickering behind their strange eyes. Draketh raised a massive hand. "Then we will make them kneel. It is not a punishment. It is a lesson every young species must learn. I will show them what true power looks like." Vorntal raised his hand, trying to calm the room. "Warlord Draketh, the Council has not authorized any military action against—" "The Council does not need to authorize what the galaxy already knows," Draketh interrupted. "A single warning fleet, no full invasion, just a lesson." He turned toward the massive screen where the words from Earth still glowed. "We do not sit where we are told to kneel." Draketh smiled, showing teeth like broken glass. "We will see how proud they remain," he said, "when my ships blacken their sky." High above Earth, in the quiet dark of space, something began to move. A Korath scout fleet, 12 warships strong, dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. Their hulls were black and jagged, built to look like predators, built to cause fear before a single weapon fired. Their sensors immediately began scanning Earth's defenses. What they found made the fleet commander pause. Earth's ships were small, simple in design compared to Korath technology. By every measurement the Korath understood, weak, but something felt wrong. The commander, a battle-scarred warrior named Skarn, narrowed his eyes at the sensor display. "Why are they not panicking?" he muttered. "Why is there no fear signal? No emergency broadcast? No pleading?" His second in command, a smaller Korath named Tuk, checked the readings again. "Commander, their planetary communications are calm. Their fleet formations are organized, like they were expecting us." Skarn's confidence flickered for just a moment before he pushed the feeling away. "They are primitives playing soldier," he said. "Move the fleet into attack position. We will fire on their outer defense stations first. Let them feel the weight of Korath power." On Earth, deep beneath the mountains of Colorado, Captain Elena Cross stood in the command center of Earth's combined defense fleet. Massive screens showed the approaching enemy ships in real time. Around her, calm young officers moved through their tasks with quiet focus. No shouting, no panic. "Enemy fleet confirmed," said a young officer named Mira Chen. 12 Korath warships entering attack range in 3 minutes. Elena nodded slowly. "Bring the Aegis grid online," she said. "Quiet mode. I don't want a single flicker on their sensors until we choose." "Yes, Captain." Earth's real defense was not what it appeared to be on the surface. The ships the Korath scanned, small, simple, outdated in design, were only the outer shell. Hidden beneath Earth's orbit, cloaked by technology developed in complete secrecy over the last 2 years, was Earth's true fleet. Humanity had learned quickly and painfully that appearing weak sometimes bought the most valuable thing of all: time. Time to prepare. Time to build. Time to hide their true strength until the moment it truly mattered. Elena watched the enemy ships approach on the screen, 12 dark shapes moving with confident, arrogant speed. "They think this will be easy," said Mira quietly. "They think a lot of things," Elena replied. "Let's teach them to think again." The Korath fleet reached attack position, weapons charging, ready to fire the first shots meant to shatter Earth's confidence in a single strike. Commander Skarn raised his hand to give the order. "Fire!" Before the word finished leaving his mouth, alarms exploded across every screen on his ship. Space around the Korath fleet seemed to shimmer, like heat rising from hot stone. Then, one by one, dozens of Earth warships decloaked, appearing out of nowhere, surrounding the Korath fleet in a perfect silent circle. Skarn's eyes widened. That is not possible. Our sensors showed nothing." "Commander," Tuck shouted, "we are surrounded. 40 ships." For the first time in his long, violent career, Skarn felt something unfamiliar twist in his chest. Fear. On Earth in the quiet command center, Elena Cross watched the screen with steady eyes. "Open a channel to the Korath commander," she said. A moment later, the image of Skarn appeared on the screen, his stone-red face twisted with confusion and rage. "Human," he growled. "Explain this trickery at once." Elena's voice was calm, almost gentle. "There is no trickery, Commander. Only preparation. You came here believing you understood us. You do not. You dare surround a Korath fleet with these toys?" Skarn snapped. "We dare," Elena said simply, "because we have no interest in kneeling to anyone. Not today. Not ever." She paused, letting her next words land with quiet weight. "You have 2 choices, Commander. Leave our system peacefully and we will let you go, unharmed, to tell your warlord what you witnessed here. Or stay and discover exactly how far our primitive ships have come." Silence hung heavy across the open channel. Skarn's pride screamed at him to fight, to prove Korath's strength, to never retreat before a species so young. But something in Elena's calm, steady voice, something in the perfect silent circle of ships surrounding his fleet told him this was not a bluff. His sensors flickered again, showing new readings. The humans' weapon systems, fully charged, aimed precisely at every critical point of his ships. Not random targeting, exact, practiced, prepared. This was not primitive. This was patient. For the first time in 10,000 years of Korath history, a commander gave an order no one had ever given before. "Fleet," Skarn said quietly, his voice heavy with something between anger and disbelief. "Retreat." The 12 black warships turned slowly and vanished back into faster-than-light travel, leaving Earth's orbit as quickly and quietly as they had come. Word of what happened spread across the galaxy within hours. News networks on 1,000 worlds run by 1,000 different species broadcast the same shocking story. A Korath war fleet, undefeated across countless conflicts, had been forced to retreat by a species barely known to the wider galaxy without a single shot fired. In the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council, Warlord Draketh Moore stood in stunned silence as the reports reached him. "Impossible," he whispered. Around the hall, murmurs of disbelief and, in some quiet corners, quiet hope spread among the delegates. Smaller species, long tired of council pressure and old empires deciding their fate, watched the reports with wide, curious eyes. Vorntal, the ancient speaker, stared at the golden light still glowing above Earth's empty chair. He had seen many things in 10,000 years. He had never seen this. "This changes nothing," Draketh growled finally, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "One retreat means nothing. We will return with greater force, and they will—" "Warlord," Vorntal interrupted quietly. "Perhaps it is time the Council considers a different question." Draketh turned toward him, eyes burning. "What question?" Vorntal's ancient gaze remained fixed on the empty golden chair. "Not how do we make Earth kneel," he said slowly, "but what happens to the Council if we cannot?" Deep in a private chamber, away from the noise of the Grand Hall, a small group of Council delegates gathered in secret. They were leaders of the Council's inner circle, powerful, careful, patient in ways warriors like Draketh could never understand. An elder delegate, an ancient being made of shifting silver light, spoke first. "Weapons will not break this species," she said. "We have seen this now, clearly. If we attack them directly again, we risk losing more than warships. We risk losing the fear that holds our entire council together." Another delegate, a sharp-eyed diplomat from a wealthy trading world, leaned forward. "Then we do not attack their ships," he said quietly. "We attack everything else." The Silver Light Elder tilted her head, curious. "Their trade," the diplomat continued, "their alliances, their reputation among the stars. We cut them off from the rest of the galaxy, quietly, slowly. We turn their allies against them. We make their name mean danger and chaos on every world that hears it." A third delegate, cold and calculating, nodded slowly. "A war without ships," she said. "A war no one can see." The Silver Light Elder was silent for a long moment, considering. Then she spoke, her voice soft but final. "If weapons cannot break them," she said, "then we will find something that can." Far above, unseen by anyone in that secret chamber, a small ship slipped quietly away from council space, carrying a single encrypted message toward the stars. The first move in a war that would not be fought with lasers or missiles, but with silence, pressure, and lies. On Earth, unaware of the storm quietly gathering far beyond their sky, people celebrated their fleet's first victory. But Captain Elena Cross stood alone at her window that night, watching the stars, a quiet unease resting in her chest. The Korath had retreated, but somewhere out there in the vast cold dark, she knew, the real war had only just begun. 3 months after the Korath fleet retreated from Earth's orbit, a cargo ship named the Silver Dawn sat frozen at the edge of a trade station near Alpha Centauri. Its human crew watched, confused, as station lights flashed red and a mechanical voice repeated the same cold message. "Docking denied. Trade license revoked. Please leave council space immediately." The captain of the Silver Dawn, a tired man named Josh Cade, tried again and again to reach the station's traffic control. "This is Captain Cade of Earth vessel Silver Dawn," he said. "We've traded here for 2 years. What's going on?" Silence. Then, finally, a voice answered, quiet and almost embarrassed. "I'm sorry, Captain. New council directive. Effective immediately. All trade with Earth vessels is suspended." "Suspended? Why?" A long pause. "They didn't give us a reason," the voice said. "Just an order." The channel went dead. Josh Cade sat back in his chair, staring out at the stars, at a trade station that had welcomed him 100 times before, now closed to him without a single explanation. He did not know it yet, but his ship was only the first. Across the galaxy, On hundreds of stations and worlds, the same message was being sent to Earth vessels, quietly, without warning, without a fight. No missiles, no warships, just doors, quietly closing one by one. In Geneva, in the same white room where Captain Elena Cross had once convinced the Assembly to refuse the Council's terms, the mood was very different now. Reports came in from every corner of Earth's small but growing network of trade routes. Ships turned away, contracts canceled without warning. Alien businesses that once welcomed human goods now refused all contact, citing new Council policy. "It's not just trade," said the Trade Minister, a sharp woman named Farah Osei, sliding a data pad across the table. "Look at this." Elena picked it up. On the screen was a news article, translated from an alien language into English by Earth's linguistic AI. The headline read, "Human species deemed unstable. Council warns of aggressive tendencies after unprovoked attack on Korath Peace Fleet." Elena's jaw tightened. "Peace Fleet," she repeated quietly. 12 warships, weapons charged, aimed at our planet. That's their Peace Fleet. "It's spreading everywhere," Farah said. "Every major news network across 1,000 worlds is running some version of this story. We're being painted as dangerous, unpredictable, a threat that needs to be watched, maybe even contained." An older general at the table, Marcus Webb, rubbed his eyes tiredly. "They can't beat us with weapons," he said slowly, understanding dawning in his voice. "So now they're trying to beat us with lies." "Not just lies," Elena said, standing up and walking to the window. Earth's blue-green curve was visible far below, calm and unaware of the storm gathering above it. "Isolation. If they can convince the whole galaxy that we're dangerous, they don't need warships anymore. Our allies will abandon us, our trade will collapse, and when we're weak and alone, that's when they'll come back." The room fell into a heavy silence. "So what do we do?" Farah asked. "We can't fight propaganda with warships." Elena turned back to face the room, her eyes steady despite the tiredness she felt inside. "No," she agreed, "but we can fight it with truth, and with friends if we can find any left who are willing to listen." Far across the galaxy, on a small, quiet moon called Vesa, a young alien named Pell watched the same news broadcasts with narrowed eyes. Pell's species, the Athani, were small and gentle creatures, covered in soft blue fur, with large dark eyes built for seeing in dim light. They had joined the Council 200 years ago, forced into an agreement much like the one offered to Earth: tribute, obedience, and silence. For 200 years, the Athani had watched their resources drained, their voices ignored, their culture slowly reshaped to fit Council expectations. They had learned painfully what it meant to live under a protection that felt very much like a cage. Pell's grandmother, an elder named Sana, sat beside him, watching the same broadcast with quiet, thoughtful eyes. "They call the humans dangerous," Pell said softly. "But all I see is a fleet that fought only when attacked, and then let their enemies leave alive." Sana nodded slowly. "The Council does not fear danger, child," she said. "It fears an example. If one species can refuse and survive, others may remember that they too once had a choice." Pell looked at his grandmother, something stirring in his young heart. "Could we reach out to them, the humans?" Sana was quiet for a long moment. Her old eyes carried the memory of many hopes crushed over the centuries. "It would be dangerous," she said finally. "The Council would call it betrayal." "And if we do nothing?" Pell asked. "We stay silent, like we always have?" Sana looked at her grandson for a long time, and something like pride and sadness passed behind her eyes. "Send the message," she said quietly. "Carefully, quietly. Let us see if this young species is truly as brave as the stories say." Back on Earth, 3 weeks into the growing isolation, a small encrypted signal reached Earth's deep space listening array, buried deep beneath the Australian outback. Mira Chen, the young officer who had helped track the Korath fleet months earlier, sat up sharply as the signal appeared on her screen. "Captain," she called, You need to see this. Elena walked over, studying the strange, careful pattern of the signal. What is it? It's not Council standard communication, Mira said, working quickly to decode it. It's old technology, almost like they're trying to avoid detection by using outdated methods. Whoever sent this doesn't want the Council to know. The message, once translated, was short and simple. We are the Ithani. We have lived under the Council's hand for 200 years. We watched what you did. Not with your weapons, but with your courage to refuse. If you wish to speak with those who remember what freedom feels like, we are listening. Elena read the message twice, a small, cautious flicker of hope rising in her chest for the first time in weeks. Send a reply, she said quietly. Careful, respectful. Let them know we hear them. But hope, however small, did not stop the pressure building elsewhere. In the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council, Warlord Draketh Moore stood once more before the assembled delegates, though his earlier arrogance had cooled into something colder, more calculating. The isolation campaign is working, said the Silver Light Elder, the one who had first proposed the Quiet War months earlier. Earth's trade has fallen by 60%. 3 of their few alien trade partners have already withdrawn all contact. It is not enough, Draketh growled. Slow starvation is not victory. It only buys us time while they continue building their strength in secret. Patience, Warlord, the Elder said calmly. A species cannot survive on pride alone. Give it time. Fear will do what weapons could not. Draketh's eyes burned with barely restrained fury. He had built his entire reputation, his very identity, on strength and swift conquest. This slow, quiet strangling of a small, defiant planet felt beneath him, an insult to everything he believed war should be. And if they find allies before your patience wins? He asked coldly. If other small, tired species begin to remember what defiance looks like? The Elder's silver light flickered thoughtfully. Then, she said slowly, we accelerate our plans. A full invasion fleet, prepared quietly, ready to strike the moment negotiations and patience run out. Draketh's mouth curled into a slow, dangerous smile. Now, he said, that is a plan I can respect. Weeks passed. On Earth, the pressure of isolation grew heavier by the day. Food supplies remained stable. Earth had always been self-sufficient in that regard. But critical rare materials, ones only available through alien trade, began to run dangerously low. Materials needed for fleet repairs. Materials needed for the secret defense project still under construction deep beneath Earth's surface. In the assembly chamber, tempers grew short. We cannot survive forever like this, argued a minister from the Resource Council, a nervous man named Aldrich Voss. Our reserves of tellurium are almost gone. Without it, our new shield generators cannot be completed. Then we find another source, Elena said calmly, though the tension in her shoulders betrayed her own growing worry. There is no other source, Voss snapped. Only 3 known deposits exist in this part of the galaxy, and all 3 are controlled by Council-aligned worlds who now refuse us. The room fell into uneasy murmurs. For the first time since Earth's defiant refusal months earlier, doubt crept into the room like a cold draft. Perhaps, said another minister quietly, an older woman named Chen Wei, it is time to reconsider our position, accept revised terms, buy ourselves time to grow stronger before. No. Elena's voice cut through the room, sharp and final. She stood slowly, looking around at the tired, frightened faces of Earth's leaders. I understand the fear, she said. I feel it too. But think carefully about what you're suggesting. The moment we accept their terms, even revised, even softened, we admit that pressure works. That isolation and lies can succeed where warships failed. And once they know that, they will never stop pressuring us again. She paused, letting her words settle over the room. We have survived worse than empty shelves, she said. We will survive this too. Let's find another way. That Other Way arrived sooner than anyone expected. 3 days later, Mira Chen rushed into the command center, her face flushed with excitement. "Captain, we received another message from the Athani," she said. "They say they found a source of tellurium, an old mining outpost on the edge of Council territory, abandoned decades ago. Forgotten in Council records. It's not much, but it could be enough to finish the shield generators." Elena felt a small, cautious flicker of hope. "Can we reach it without being detected?" "It's risky," Mira admitted. "The location is close to a Council patrol route. If we're caught taking resources from what's technically still Council-claimed territory, it could be seen as an act of aggression." Elena considered this carefully. Every choice now carried enormous weight. Every risk a potential spark for a larger, more dangerous fire. "Assemble a small team," she said finally. "Quiet ships. No weapons fire unless absolutely necessary. If the Athani are willing to help us, the least we can do is trust them enough to try." The mission to the abandoned outpost, later remembered by history as the Quiet Run, became one of the first true tests of Earth's growing secret alliance with the Athani. A small human transport ship, guided by Athani navigators who knew the hidden paths through Council patrol routes, slipped quietly through the dark reaches of space. Pell himself, the young Athani who had first suggested reaching out to Earth, traveled aboard the ship, eager to see the humans he had only read about in secret reports. He watched the human crew work, quick, efficient, calm under pressure, and found himself surprised by how familiar it felt. Not so different in the end from his own people's quiet determination to survive. "You're not what I expected," Pell said to the ship's young pilot, a woman named Sarah Voss, as they navigated carefully past a distant Council patrol beacon. "What did you expect?" Sarah asked, focused on her instruments. "Something more aggressive," Pell admitted. "The stories the Council tells paint your species as dangerous, reckless." Sarah gave a small, tired smile. "We're not reckless," she said. "We're just tired of being told what we're allowed to want." Pell was quiet for a moment, considering this. "I understand that feeling," he said softly. "Better than you might think." The mission succeeded. Quiet, careful, and unseen by Council patrols, Earth's ship returned home with enough tellurium to complete the shield generators, and something even more valuable. The first true friendship between Earth and another species who understood deeply what it meant to want freedom. But even as Earth's alliance with the Athani began to grow, far away in the grand hall of the Council, patience was finally running out. Warlord Draketh Moore stood once more before the assembled delegates, this time flanked by senior Korath commanders, their faces set with grim, eager determination. "Enough waiting," he declared, his voice booming through the chamber. "Their alliances grow, their resistance strengthens. Every day we delay, this small, defiant planet becomes more dangerous, not less." The Silverlight Elder studied him carefully. "You wish to abandon the quiet approach?" "I wish to end this," Draketh said flatly. "Completely. Not a warning fleet, not a lesson, a full invasion. Overwhelming force, enough that even their hidden ships and clever tricks cannot save them." Murmurs spread through the chamber, some delegates nodding in cold agreement, others watching with quiet unease. Vorntal, the ancient speaker, finally rose from his seat, his old, calm voice cutting through the growing noise. "Warlord," he said carefully, "a full invasion is not a decision the Council makes lightly. The cost in ships and resources and lives would be immense. The cost of allowing their defiance to continue unpunished," Draketh replied coldly, "would be far greater. If Earth remains free, remains strong, remains an example to every small, tired species watching from the shadows. How long before the entire Council begins to crumble?" Silence spread through the chamber as the weight of his words settled over the assembled delegates. Finally, the Silverlight Elder spoke, her voice quiet but final. "Prepare the fleet," she said. "The largest invasion force the Council has ever assembled. No more quiet wars, no more patience." She turned toward the golden light still glowing above Earth's empty chair, a light that had once represented invitation, and now represented something far more dangerous. "It is time," she said softly, "to end this, once and for all." On Earth, unaware of the storm now gathering with terrifying speed far beyond their sky, Captain Elena Cross stood once more at her window that night, watching the stars. The shield generators, finally completed thanks to the quiet courage of a small, gentle species who understood what it meant to be free, hummed to life deep beneath the earth, their soft blue light pulsing steadily like a heartbeat. For the first time in months, Elena allowed herself a small, tired smile. They were not alone anymore. But even as that small hope settled quietly in her chest, deep in the void between the stars, a fleet larger than anything humanity had ever imagined began to gather, dark and silent and utterly terrifyingly determined. The quiet war was ending. A far greater storm was about to begin. Deep in the void between two dying stars in a region of space so empty that even light took years to cross it, the Korath Dominion built its fleet. Ship after ship emerged from massive orbital shipyards, dark hulls gleaming under the dim starlight, weapon systems humming to life for the first time. This was not a warning fleet. This was not a lesson. This was an army built for one purpose only: to erase, completely and finally, any doubt about who truly ruled the galaxy. Warlord Draketh Moore stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Ashbringer, watching the fleet grow larger by the day on his display screens. 3,000 warships, then 4,000, then 5. "Commander Skarn," Draketh said, not turning from the screen. "You fled from 12 human ships. Tell me now, does 5,000 still frighten you?" Skarn, still bearing the quiet shame of his retreat months earlier, straightened his back. "No, Warlord, this fleet will not fail." "See that it does not," Draketh said coldly. "The Council has grown impatient with quiet wars and clever tricks. This time, we finish what should have ended the moment they refused their seat." Behind him, the Silverlight Elder, watching from a smaller vessel connected by secure channel, spoke softly. "Remember, Warlord, this is not simply about Earth anymore. Every species watching, the Athani, the small, tired worlds who dream of defiance, they are watching too. This invasion must be absolute. It must remove all doubt, move all." Draketh's eyes burned with grim determination. "When my fleet is finished," he said, "there will be no doubt left in this galaxy. Only fear and order." On Earth, the first signs of the coming storm arrived quietly, carried through the same secret channels that had brought hope from the Athani months earlier. Pell, now a trusted friend within Earth's inner defense circle, delivered the warning himself, traveling personally to Geneva aboard a small, unmarked ship. 5,000 ships, he said, standing before Earth's assembly, his soft blue fur bristling with worry. Perhaps more by the time they finish gathering. This is not a fleet meant to threaten. It is a fleet meant to destroy. The room fell into stunned, heavy silence. 5,000, General Marcus Webb repeated slowly. "Our entire fleet, even counting every hidden ship we've built in secret, barely reaches 300. "Then we find a way to even the numbers," Elena said, though even she felt the weight of what Pell had just described pressing hard against her chest. "How?" Farah Osei asked, her voice tight with barely controlled fear. "We cannot build 4,000 ships overnight." "No," Elena agreed. "But numbers are not the only thing that decides a battle." She turned to Pell. "You said other species are watching, the ones tired of Council rule. Do any of them have the strength or the courage to stand with us?" Pell hesitated. "Some," he said carefully. "But fear runs deep after centuries of Council control. Most will wait to see if you can survive the first strike before risking everything to join you." Elena nodded slowly, understanding the harsh truth in his words. Earth would have to prove itself again, alone, before anyone else dared stand beside them. "Then we make sure we survive," she said, "and we make it count." Deep beneath the mountains of Colorado, Earth's finest engineers, scientists, and military minds gathered around a massive holographic display of the solar system. Dr. Amara Singh, the lead scientist behind Earth's shield technology, pointed toward a series of glowing markers surrounding Earth's orbit. The shield generators the Athani helped us complete can protect the planet itself, she explained, but they cannot protect our fleet in open combat. If Dracoth's ships arrive with the numbers Pell described, our ships will be overwhelmed within minutes, shields or not. Then we don't fight them in open combat, said a younger officer, a sharp-minded strategist named David Osei, Farah's nephew, freshly promoted to Earth's War Council. We fight them somewhere the numbers don't matter as much. Elena leaned forward, intrigued. Go on. David pulled up a new display, showing the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, a chaotic field of rock and debris stretching across millions of kilometers. If we lure their fleet into the asteroid belt, he said, their larger ships lose maneuverability. Our smaller, faster vessels can strike and retreat before they can properly respond. It won't defeat 5,000 ships outright, but it could cut their numbers down and buy us critical time. Time for what? Asked General Webb. David looked toward Elena, a small determined spark in his young eyes. Time for our allies to decide whose side they truly want to be on. While Earth prepared quietly for the coming storm, Pell returned to his homeworld of Vesa, carrying with him not just warnings but a request. His grandmother, the elder Sana, listened carefully as Pell described Earth's careful, desperate plans. They ask for our help directly this time, Pell said. Not quiet trade, not hidden messages. They ask if the Athani will stand with them openly when the Korath fleet arrives. Sana was quiet for a long moment, her old eyes heavy with the weight of 200 years of careful, fearful silence. If we stand with them and they fall, she said slowly, the Council will erase us for our betrayal. Completely. Without mercy. And if we do nothing, Pell replied gently, and they fall anyway, what will that silence cost us? Not our lives, perhaps, but something else. Something harder to name. Sana studied her grandson for a long time, seeing in his eyes a fire she remembered from her own youth. A fire she had long ago learned to hide beneath careful obedience. You truly believe they can win, she said. It was not quite a question. I believe, Pell said carefully, that they are the first species I have ever seen who would rather lose everything fighting for freedom than keep everything by kneeling. Sana closed her eyes, memories of her own youth, of dreams long buried beneath centuries of quiet fear, rising softly within her. Call the Council of Elders, she said finally. All of them. It is time the Athani remembered what courage feels like. Word spread slowly, carefully across the quiet networks of small, tired species scattered throughout Council space. Worlds who had lived for generations beneath the weight of Council control began quietly to watch Earth's growing defiance with something they had almost forgotten how to feel. Hope. Not all answered the call. Fear, deep and old, kept many silent, watching from the shadows, waiting to see if Earth would survive before risking everything themselves. But some did answer, a small fleet from a water world called Threll, whose people had never once been permitted their own warships under Council law, quietly began gathering makeshift vessels, armed with weapons smuggled and hidden for decades in defiance of Council restrictions. A group of exiled scientists from a destroyed world called Karn Ve, whose planet had been sacrificed by the Council decades earlier in a resource dispute, offered Earth something even more valuable than ships. Knowledge, deep and bitter knowledge of Korath fleet tactics, gathered through years of quiet, painful study. And the Athani, led openly now by Sana herself, prepared their own small fleet, faster and more maneuverable than anything the Korath expected, ready to fight not for Earth alone, but for the fragile, dangerous hope that freedom might still be possible. It was not an army capable of matching 5,000 Korath warships. Not yet. But it was something the Council had never truly accounted for. It was the beginning of resistance. Back in the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council, Vorntal watched these small, scattered signs of rebellion with growing unease. Reports continue to arrive, he said quietly to the Silverlight Elder. Small fleets, hidden alliances, species who have remained silent for centuries, suddenly finding their voice. It changes nothing, the elder replied, though even her calm, ancient voice carried a faint note of concern. A handful of exiled scientists and outdated ships cannot hope to stand against Draketh's fleet. Perhaps not, Vorntal said slowly. But numbers were never truly the danger here, were they? The danger was always the idea. The idea that defiance is possible, that the Council's power is not absolute. He turned to look at her directly, his ancient eyes heavy with quiet worry. And ideas, he said softly, have a way of spreading far faster than any fleet. The elder said nothing for a long moment, her silver light flickering thoughtfully. Then we ensure, she said finally, that this idea dies quickly and completely before it can spread any further. 3 weeks later, Draketh's fleet was finally ready. 5,200 warships gathered from every corner of Korath space, stretched across the dark void like a vast, silent storm cloud, waiting only for the final order to move. Draketh stood once more on the bridge of the Ashbringer, watching the fleet's final preparations with grim satisfaction. Set course for the human system, he commanded. No warnings this time, no demands. We strike their fleet first, then their planetary defenses, then, if necessary, their world itself. Commander Skarn hesitated slightly. Warlord, if we strike the planet directly, there is a risk of— There is no risk, Draketh interrupted coldly. Only lessons, and this lesson will be remembered by every species in this galaxy for 10,000 years. The fleet began to move, faster than light engines igniting one by one across thousands of ships, a wave of dark, unstoppable force beginning its journey toward a small, defiant, blue-green world. On Earth, the final warning arrived quietly through Ethani channels 3 days before the fleet's expected arrival. Elena stood once more in the command center beneath the Colorado mountains, watching the final preparations unfold around her with a strange, heavy calm. All hidden fleets report ready, Mira Chen said. Asteroid belt defenses in position, shield generators at full power. Allied fleets? Elena asked. The Ethani and Threll fleets have arrived and taken position alongside our own, David Osei reported. Karn Vay's tactical data has been integrated into our defense systems. It's not much, Captain. Against 5,000 ships, it's still not much. Elena nodded slowly, feeling the weight of what was coming settle heavily across her shoulders. She thought of the empty chair in the grand hall of the council, still glowing with its soft golden light, waiting for a species that had refused, again and again, to kneel. She thought of the quiet courage of a small, gentle people like the Ethani, finally finding their voice after 200 years of silence. She thought of humanity itself, a species that had never survived because it was the strongest, but because it had never, not once, stopped standing back up. It doesn't have to be enough to win outright, she said finally, quiet but firm. It only has to be enough to make them remember forever that we do not kneel. Around her, the command center fell into a heavy, determined silence. Every officer, every screen, every quiet preparation now focused on a single, terrifying truth. The largest fleet the galaxy had ever assembled was coming. And Earth, small, defiant, and no longer entirely alone, was ready to meet it. Far above the quiet, unaware world below, the first faint signs of Draketh's approaching fleet began to appear on Earth's deep space sensors, distant flickers of light, growing steadily brighter with each passing hour. In the grand hall of the council, delegates from 1,000 worlds watched the unfolding events with a mixture of fear, curiosity, and, in some quiet, hopeful corners, something that had not been felt in the council chamber for 10,000 years. Anticipation. Vorntal stood alone before the massive display, watching the distant markers representing Draketh's fleet inch ever closer toward a small, determined world that had dared, from the very beginning, to say no. Whatever happens next, he murmured softly to himself, this galaxy will never be the same again. Behind him, the golden light above Earth's empty chair flickered gently, as if in quiet, patient agreement. The storm was almost here. The sky over Earth turned dark, not with clouds, not with storm, with ships. 5,200 Korath warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in a single, coordinated wave, filling the space above Earth like a black tide rolling in to swallow a small, lonely shore. Sunlight vanished behind their hulls in patches across the sky. In cities below, people looked up and saw shadows where blue had always been. In the command center beneath the Colorado mountains, alarms did not scream. There was no need. Every officer in the room had known this moment was coming for weeks. They simply watched, silent and still, as the massive display filled with thousands upon thousands of red markers. "Confirmed count," Mira Chen said, her voice steady despite the tightness in her chest. 5,206 warships, full invasion formation. Captain Elena Cross stood at the center of the room, her eyes fixed on the display, her face calm in the way of someone who had already made peace with what was coming. "Allied fleets?" she asked quietly. "Ithani, Threll, and our own hidden fleet holding position in the asteroid belt," David Osei confirmed. 340 ships total, Captain, against 5,000. "Then we make every one of them count," Elena said. She reached for the comm channel, her voice carrying now to every ship in Earth's combined fleet, human and alien alike. "This is Captain Elena Cross," she said. "Today the galaxy sends its greatest fleet to teach us a lesson in fear. We are not going to learn it." Aboard the Ashbringer, Warlord Draketh Moore watched Earth's small, scattered fleet gather at the edge of the asteroid belt with something between amusement and mild curiosity. 300 ships, he said, almost laughing. "They bring 300 ships to face 5,000. Even for humans, this is foolish." Commander Skarn studied the tactical display more carefully, his earlier confidence tempered by memory. "Warlord, they are positioned inside the asteroid field. Our larger ships will struggle to maneuver there. Then we do not chase them into the rocks," Draketh said simply. "We surround the field, cut off every path of retreat, and we begin destroying their asteroid cover, piece by piece, until they have nowhere left to hide." He raised his hand, and across the vast dark fleet, 5,000 warships began to move, spreading into a massive circle around the asteroid belt, slow, patient, and utterly overwhelming. "Let them hide," Draketh murmured. "It will only make their end slower." The first hours of the battle were quiet, strange, and tense. Draketh's fleet did not rush in. Instead, they began methodically destroying the outer edges of the asteroid field with long-range weapons, collapsing hiding places one by one, tightening the noose slowly around Earth's small waiting fleet. Inside the field, Elena watched the pattern unfold on her display and felt a cold understanding settle over her. "He's not attacking us directly," she said. "He's hurting us, removing our cover until we have nowhere left to run." "How long until the field is cleared?" David asked. Dr. Amara Singh, monitoring the destruction pattern from a secondary station, did the calculation quickly. "At this rate, 6 hours, maybe less." Elena's mind raced. 6 hours to find a way to turn overwhelming numbers into a battle Earth could survive. Then, watching the pattern of Korath ships spreading into their wide, patient circle, she saw it, small, but real. "They're spreading thin," she said slowly. "To surround a field this size with 5,000 ships, their formation has to stretch across a massive distance. Look here." She pointed to a section of the display. "Their line is thinnest along this stretch, near the old mining routes Karn Vay's data mapped for us." David leaned in, understanding dawning in his eyes. "If we break through there concentrated all at once, we won't have to fight 5,000 ships," Elena finished. "We'll only have to fight the few hundred holding that line." The plan was risky, desperate, and utterly unlike anything Korath tactics had ever accounted for. Rather than remain hidden, waiting to be slowly destroyed, Earth's combined fleet would strike first, concentrated and sudden, directly at the thinnest point in Draketh's massive encircling formation. "If this works," Elena told her officers, "we break their formation early before they finish clearing the field. It won't defeat their fleet, but it will buy us room to fight on our terms, not theirs." "And if it fails?" Farah Ose asked quietly over the comm channel from Geneva. Elena was silent for a moment. Then at least we chose how the story ends, she said. Not them. At the appointed hour, Earth's fleet moved. 340 ships, human, Ithani, and Threll, surged out from the asteroid field's cover in a single, tight formation, aimed directly at the weakest point in Dracoth's encircling line. The Korath ships holding that section, caught by surprise, scrambled to respond. But Earth's small, fast vessels, guided by Ithani piloting skill and Karnvay's careful tactical data, tore through the gap with brutal, focused speed, striking engines and weapon systems with precise, coordinated fire before the larger Korath ships could properly turn to fight back. In minutes, a hole tore open in Dracoth's perfect formation, dozens of Korath ships destroyed or crippled, and Earth's fleet surged through into open space beyond. Aboard the Ashbringer, Dracoth's amusement vanished in an instant, replaced by cold fury. They broke through, Skarn reported, disbelief thick in his voice. The entire southern line collapsed in minutes. Pull the fleet in, Dracoth snarled. Full pursuit. I don't care about the asteroid field anymore. Destroy them. All of them. Now. What followed was not one great battle, but 100 smaller ones scattered across the space above Earth, chaotic, brutal, and desperate. Earth's ships, smaller and faster, used every advantage David's plan had given them, striking hard, retreating quickly, never allowing the massive Korath vessels to bring their full weight to bear all at once. Ithani pilots, small and quick, danced between enemy formations with skill born from generations of careful, patient survival. Threll gunners, armed with weapons smuggled and hidden for decades, fired with the focused fury of people finally given the chance to fight for something real. The message reached Earth 2 days later, carried not with threats or demands, but with something the Council had never before offered any species, an apology and a new invitation. Elena stood once more in the same white room in Geneva where, 1 year earlier, she had convinced a frightened assembly to refuse the Council's terms. This time, the room was filled not with fear, but with quiet, exhausted pride. They offer a new seat, Farah Ose said, reading the message carefully. Full council membership, equal voice, no tribute, no surrendered weapons. They're calling it a partnership. After everything, General Webb said quietly, they finally offer us what we asked for from the very start. Elena read the message herself, feeling the weight of the past year settle into something calmer, steadier. What do we tell them? Farah asked. Elena thought of Captain Josh Cade, turned away from trade stations that once welcomed him. She thought of Pell and Sana, risking everything to stand beside a species they barely knew. She thought of every name lost in the battle above Earth's sky, sacrifices made not for conquest but simply for the right to stand freely on their own 2 feet. Tell them, she said finally, that Earth accepts. In the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council, weeks later, the golden light above Earth's chair glowed warmly as Captain Elena Cross herself finally stepped forward to take her seat. The first time any representative of Earth had physically stood within that ancient chamber. The hall, filled with delegates from 1,000 worlds, watched in respectful, attentive silence as she settled into the chair that had remained empty for so long. Vorntal approached her personally, his ancient eyes carrying something like quiet admiration. "Welcome, Representative Cross," he said. "The Council is different now because of what your species chose to do." Elena looked around the massive chamber at delegates who had once dismissed Earth as primitive, now watching her with careful, newfound respect. "We didn't do this to change the Council," she said quietly. "We did it because we refused to become something we were never meant to be." Vorntal nodded slowly, understanding settling deeply behind his ancient eyes. "Perhaps," he said, "that is precisely why it changed everything." Later that evening, back on Earth, Elena stood once more at her window, watching the stars, the same stars that had once carried nothing but distant, uncertain threat, now carrying something new. Allies, friends, a galaxy slowly, carefully remembering what it meant to stand freely, rather than kneel quietly. The chair in the grand hall was no longer empty. But somewhere deep within humanity's quiet, stubborn heart, Elena understood a simple, lasting truth. Earth had never truly needed that seat to matter. It had earned its place among the stars not by asking for permission but by refusing again and again, no matter the cost, to bow to anyone. Earth's seat stayed empty, until Earth chose to fill it on its own terms, standing tall and bowing to no one. "Humankind,"